Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of BC Plus Live. I'm your host, Jeremiah, with my co host,
Jeremy, 35, YUZ.
and we are very happy to have you here tonight. And thank you to everybody who's tuning in on YouTube as well for the first 30 minutes of the show. Tonight, we are actually going to be covering how to take and do the firmware update and the baseband update on the 168, as well as an added bonus for BC Plus members. We are going to actually have something extra for you guys after the first 30 minutes of the show. So, to get us started, if you haven't already entered and you're a BC Plus member, and you're on the Zoom call that's being live streamed to YouTube, uh, Greg has already posted the link to the giveaway for BC Plus members in the chat. So thank you again, Greg, for that. And give me 1 second here. There you go. Jeremy, you should be able to unmute yourself again. All right.
Unmuted to begin with.
Yeah, notice that if I don't click the mute all button on Zoom, occasionally somebody will start cheering at the TV that's watching a sports game of some sort. So needed to make sure I click that button real quick.
Yep.
Because then everybody's like, what are they watching that they're cheering? So,
Go, go, it's good.
well, either that or, okay, I've got that number. I've got that number. I've got that number. Oh, man, I didn't get that number. Darn it. Didn't get the jackpot. Um, so, uh, for those who are unfamiliar, this is actually the 168 radio. And you can tell I'm using a different USB-C cable to connect it to my computer than the one that ships with it. As long as you've got a data cable that is capable of doing USB-C type A to USB-C, you can use that cable as well. It does need to be a data as well as uh, charging. So there's that also. In my case, let me show you guys this real quick. I actually have an adapter that takes USB-C to US and makes it USB type A, and it's actually working. Um, to connect it to the computer, it shows up in Device Manager, it reads the radio and all that fun stuff. So, found that out right before the show. So, if you're having issues with the radio showing up in Windows 11 or Windows 10, very first thing to check. If you haven't installed the CPS yet, make sure that you're not in a brand new install of Windows that is stuck in S mode, because S mode locks down the operating system where it won't install external Microsoft programs or external programs that are not from Microsoft, and it won't install the driver automatically in Windows 10 and Windows 11. There is a driver in the latest version of the CPS or customer programming software for Windows 7 and Windows 8 and 8.1. If you're on Windows 10 or 11, do not install that driver. It is only for Windows 7 or Windows 8 or 8.1. Windows 10 and Windows 11 have the driver automatically. Um, also, um, I do have a special announcement for BC Plus members later. This is an update that I got from a company that I think you guys are going to be very happy about, especially if you hate Windows. So, um, just get your thinking caps on about that one. Uh, Other than that, Jeremy, how was your weekend?
Windy. That's all I can say. Greg was letting all that air, come down. He didn't close the doors, so
I think the phrase was, were you raised in a barn?
I don't know. Greg left the door open. All that cold air come down from Tulsa down this way.
They must have been having an argument at the state capitol building. Um, the politicians.
Yeah. Mhm.
Sorry, I don't like politics overall, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on. So whenever they argue over anything, I just put some more rocks in my pockets and hold on tight. So, although, you know, I don't think I've skipped enough meals to be able to blow away in the wind yet. So,
Touche.
but anyway, um, so I'll have to see what I can do to get Jeremy a upgraded camera at some point. See what we can do to make that happen. So, real quick, let's go ahead and head over to the BridgeCom Systems website because one, we want to go over some of the specials that we're running right now, but also show you where to get the latest version of the CPS firmware and baseband for the 168 radio. So let's see here. Screen 2 and share. And can you guys see this okay? Or do I need to like zoom this in a little bit?
I see
Okay.
thumbs up.
Okay. Awesome. I know the text on the CPS tends to be one of the things that definitely needs to be zoomed in on. So, all right. So, here's the 168. And then here's some of the stuff that we're doing right now in the shop. And then here's the holiday deals that are running till the 16th and the countdown. We've got the 168 radio. If you get it right now, you also get the training course and the speaker mic. You have to add both to the cart and then use the discount code holiday at checkout. If you don't put the discount code in and you don't have the microphone in there, it will not apply it. The other deal that we're running right now is the 578, the tri-band mobile antenna, the trunk lip mount, and the training course for the 578. Also, the 878 UV2 Plus, the tried and true workhorse. Um, Again, holiday for the discount code to get the speaker mic and make sure that both are in the cart to get the speaker mic. And then we've got the Skybridge upgrade with the Skybridge Max, as well as the programming of the Duo Max code plug, as well as the hotspot training course. And you can do this one on either the 168 or the 878. Um, that should also state that you can send the 578 in as well, because this can be used for all three radios. So just a heads up on that. Um, if your radio is in Part 90 mode, because you're a firefighter or EMS or Aries or anything like that, the Duo Max code plug won't work on it because it's set for amateur frequency mode only. So just keep that in mind. If you're running Part 90, that's not going to work. Then we've got the Skybridge Max by itself that comes with just the Ultra code plug and the hotspot training course. And then we've got the Maximizer upgrade where, let's say you've got a Skybridge Plus and you want the new operating system as well as the new screen image file and the latest modem firmware, you can send that in and get that upgraded to the Skybridge Max. And then if you've got 878 or a 578 and a Skybridge Plus and you want to get everything updated to the latest firmware, latest baseband, your Skybridge upgraded to the latest modem board firmware, the screen, and the operating system, then we've got that as well under the plug and play maximizer. And then there's some extra sales stuff that is going on. The protective case, the security style earpiece, the mobile charging kit is only for the 878 and 868s. This does not work with the 168. Just to keep informed on that, because if I don't know if you guys can see this or not. Let me cut back here real quick, if it'll let me. Somewhere. The lineup is different on the battery pins. So I just want to make sure that I share that so you guys see that. And then 20% off other accessories. So this BCA 300 dual band mag mount antenna does work with the 168, just so you guys are aware. And then programming cables, the AnyTone radio USB programming cable, this only works with the 878 and the 868. This does not work with the 168 because the 168 does use USB-C to program. So that is it for the holiday sales. And let's get to the meat and potatoes. So let's go ahead and get back to the main page. Now, Jeremy can attest to this. Most important thing when you're getting ready to update your radio, back up the code plug. I don't care if you've got to make 100 copies, so you've got it. Back up that code plug.
If I had $1 for every time I took a call on one like that.
And then they're mad because they're like, well, can't you just go to the recycling bin and undelete it? And it's like, it doesn't work like that. All right. So we're going to click on support. And then you'll notice that right here, it doesn't have the direct link for the 868, or excuse me, the 168 listed right here. You have to click see all articles. And let me blow this up here so you guys can see that a little better. You've got to click see all articles and then scroll down, and under Skybridge Max will be the link for the AnyTone 168 handheld support. This is where you find the latest CPS, firmware, and baseband for the radio. So we're going to click on that. And then remember, this is for Windows only. Any firmware updates, any baseband updates are only done in Windows. So if you don't have a Windows computer, find, your niece, your nephew, your brother, your sister, your wife, your husband, whoever's got one, even if it's a cheap $200, $300 one from Best Buy or Walmart, it should work. It'll be a little slow, but it'll work. And the very top option is always going to be the current version. So we're going to click on that. It's going to ask us where we're going to save it. I'm going to tell it to save in downloads, just so I know where it's at.
And please, when you download it, it doesn't matter which software that it is. Make sure you know exactly where in the computer it's going. Otherwise, you're going to be spending a day, 2 days, 3 days trying to figure out where it went, because the computer will assign it. Sometimes it'll be downloads, sometimes it'll be documents. One thing I'll suggest, make a folder and have it download straight to that folder. Where you know where it is every time.
Yeah, for my web browser. Yeah, for my web browser, I actually have it set to ask me in the settings where I want to save the file. So that is an option that you can set up in your web browser too, to be able to have it ask you where you want to save the file instead of automatically saving it each time. So let's go ahead and get this pulled up to the other screen here, because I know it's going to freak out here in a minute if I don't do this. So let's go ahead and share my screen. And yes, I know I have a boatload of icons on my desktop. So,
Hilarious.
yeah.
You got that one.
Uh-oh.
Now,
What'd I miss?
is it the USS Dinghy or the RSM Titanic?
At this point, it's the USS. How many hard drives do you have? Because, yeah. Um, as you can tell here, I have enough hard drives. So here's the zip file. And for those of you that have WinZip, you can use it to extract it. 7-zip will extract it. But if you don't have either of those programs, you can actually just right-click on the zip file. Oops, let's try that again. All right, so here's all the hard drives, all the way from C all the way to M. And I'm in my downloads folder. And what I'm going to do is right-click on the zip file that says the D168. And then click extract all. And it's going to ask me where to extract it. I just leave it as the default folder name in my downloads, which is where it's going to extract to. And then for me, on my extract options, it automatically opens the extracted folder. So the first thing is, if for those of you who are eagle-eyed, you'll notice that I have a copy of the 168 1.03 software down here hanging out in the corner. I need to uninstall that because I already have my code plug backed up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit the start key on my keyboard and then add or, and it automatically populates or remove programs for the first thing under best match. And then I'm going to come down the list till I see ATD, or excuse me, D168. So here it is right here. And you need to make sure the program is removed before you install the new copy, because if you install the new copy and then remove the old copy, it takes some of the system files that the new copy needs to run with it. To answer Greg's question, you don't have to really remove the old software if you don't want to. If you've got a couple of radios that are on different firmware versions. For me, I always update my firmware. So just so I don't have more icons than I already have on my desktop. So I'm going to click uninstall. And Windows will pop up a user account control, which I don't think you guys are able to see when it does that. And then it's going to ask me if I want to uninstall it. And it removed it. And then I can close this back out and come back over here to the CPS, double click the folder. And just to save myself any headaches later, right click and run as administrator when I go to install it. Now, sometimes you'll get this window protected your PC message. Sometimes you won't. Just click more info. And if you don't see these buttons right here, it means your screen resolution is a lot higher than, or a lot lower than my screen resolution. So you'll have a little bar that slides left or right down here that you can slide over to get to it. I'm going to click run anyway. User account control pops up again. Just click yes. And when you go to install it, it's going to try and install by default to a D drive. If you don't have a D drive, what you can do is just click here in that box, press the home key on your keyboard, delete the letter D, and then just put in C for C drive. Since I put everything in the AnyTone folder on my C drive, when I install it, I'm just going to click Browse, C drive, AnyTone, click AnyTone, click OK, and it automatically creates a new folder called D168 underscore 1.04. I'm going to click Next again, and create a desktop shortcut. That way I've got the icon on the computer. I can click on it to open it. All right. I'm going to click Install. There we go. And when you first open it, it's going to ask you, and I've gotten this question several times already. Why does it have GPS and Bluetooth and APRS in here if the radio doesn't have those functions? They're planning ahead. AnyTone's planning ahead, putting the features in the software ahead of time, because eventually they do plan on having a 168 that does have those features, but that is way down the road at this point. So it's easier to build everything in at one time instead of having to come back and add it in later. So for them, it's easier to put everything in at once because they can use the same blueprint for all their software. All right. I'm not going to mess with any of these right now because, one, it doesn't have the GPS or the Bluetooth, and I'm not setting up APRS today. So I'm just going to click OK. And the software is going to pull up here. And this is probably where I'm going to need to... Can you guys see the screen okay, or is it going to be a little fuzzy? Because I want to make sure everybody can see this okay. Okay. I got a few people saying zoom in. All right, give me 1 second here.
Now, Eric's got a question or a statement. He says his CPS is gray. How does he make it white?
That is a really good question because I've never seen that before. It could be that you have your Windows settings set for a different color scheme. Um, so, I know it really depends on the theme that you have running on Windows.
He just responded that he closed that, opened it back up, and it was white. So,
okay. AnyTone doesn't take into effect light mode or dark mode for most of their software. So just a heads up on that. All right. So my radio is already on and plugged in, and it's the only COM port on my computer. Oh, I take that back. It wasn't turned on. It was just sitting there charging. Okay. So COM port 3 is going to be what pops up on my computer. How you can find your COM port for your radio, and it's a real simple test, is you can actually, once the radio is turned on, go into your device manager. And how I get to it is I just press the start button and type in device, and or start to type device, and it always comes up as the first one for me. The other option is you can actually take and right click. I don't think it'll let me do the taskbar when I'm zooming. But you can right click the start button on your taskbar and click device manager as well. And that'll pull device manager up. Now you'll notice I've got an option here that says ports. For the AnyTone radios, it will always say USB serial device and then the COM port number. The exception to that, Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 8.1, you have to install the GD32 driver. And it'll say GD virtual COM port or something similar to that.
What's the other Windows that you're forgetting to label or mention, I should say?
Vista?
That is correct. We'll
You
pop
know,
it every time.
I haven't had anybody who's ever called in with Windows Vista. It's always been Windows 7.
I ran out of fingers and toes to take all the calls that I had. That came in on Vista and Millennium. Easy, Jonathan. Don't laugh yourself out of the chair. I see him over there laughing so hard at that statement.
Well,
Greg, I never had that many with XP. XP played nice with it without a problem.
yeah, just install the driver and away it goes.
Yeah, Windows 95. It won't even load.
Yeah, for Windows, little Microsoft history, Windows 95, 98, they were good. Then Windows ME, sorry Microsoft, sucked. Then what was it? Windows Vista, and then or no, it was ME, then XP, then it went Vista, then Windows 7, 8, 8.1, Windows 10, Windows 11.
And all of their conglomerations.
Yep. Jonathan said Windows NT, Windows not that. Yeah, Windows ME, massively extinct or massive error, because every time you booted it up, 30 seconds later, it was a kernel error.
Blue screen of death.
Steve says, I think Adam was still using NT. That might explain the power outages. LA is still running the NT and ME servers for the power supply at the power plant. Okay, so USB serial device, COM3 on my computer. So I'm going to exit out of that. I'm going to select it. And since CPS version 1.04 is backwards compatible with 1.03, I can go ahead and read my radio to get my code plug off of it. So I'm going to click read radio. And I'm not saving this code plug because this is just a default code plug it opened. Do I want to read the data? Yes. Do I want to read the digital contact list? No. We'll be here all night.
That was one fallback. Writing or reading that DC list takes forever.
Okay. So something that the eagle-eyed viewers will notice is that on the 168 software, the VFOA and VFOB are now at the top instead of the bottom of your channel list. Also, the other thing you'll notice is instead of common settings, like on the 878 software, it says public right here. So just a quick little thing there. And Jonathan is showing something, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I can't make it out.
So I've got my code plug. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to save this file. So I'm going to do file save as. And I'm just going to take and create a new folder. And today's the 12th, so 12, 12, 24. Hey, add the day and the month together, you get 24. And I'm just going to save it as new. All right. Jonathan, you're wrong for that. It's a picture of the Windows operating system in cement, and it says Windows CEMENT for Windows ME, Windows Cement, because it bricked.
I love it. I love it.
Okay. Okay, he's not exactly wrong, but okay. So now that I've got my code plug saved, what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize, not close out, but minimize my CPS and get malware bytes out of the way here. And I'm going to go back to where the installer was. And I'm actually going to go up a level and see where it says 3288 baseband right here. The 3288 represents the chip that's in the radio. If you notice on your 878 and your 578, it's a 3258 chip. So this is the newer chip. So everything you need to update your baseband is actually in this folder, and there's the PDF with the instructions on how to do your baseband update. So what we're going to do is actually that. And here's the instructions. With the radio turned off, press and hold the PTT button and the pound sign button. So I'm going to turn the radio off. I've got my green light here on top of the radio. And I'm going to press the PTT, the pound sign, and while playing finger Tetris here, turn on the radio, keep holding both buttons. And I get warning boot mode for SCT. Let me stop my share here for a moment so I can show that to you guys. So there's that. If I can get the glare off here. All right. And then what we're going to do is go ahead, go back over here, go back into that 3288 folder, and where it says SCT port 3288, I'm going to open that folder, and I'm going to look for the one that says SCT port and then application. I'm going to open it. I get that lovely little Microsoft protected your PC thing again. Click more info, click run anyway. And it's going to ask me the platform. That's going to be my chip. So it's 3288. I'm going to click OK. And then up here at the top, we see tools. We're on click config. And I'm on COM3. So I'm just going to select COM3, click OK. SCT port, and come down to where it says flash update. Don't worry about any of this other stuff. We just want the flash update. All right, there's our lovely little flash update window. Program file. This is where that hex file that we saw earlier comes in. I'm going to click the three dots. And I'm right in this window. I'm just going to click right where it says 3288 baseband. Get back to it. And here's the hex file with the update. I'm going to click it. Click open. And then I'm not going to hit flash update yet. I'm going to click initialize port just to make sure it can connect with the radio. Initialize port, successful. Now I'll hit flash update.
Now, can
and we'll
you
get
do
our
this without having to hit the initialization of that port?
Huh?
Do you have to initialize the port before you do the flash update?
It is recommended just to make sure that the radio and the computer can connect. Just make sure that, they're talking back and forth. Now, we're going to get a status message or a bunch of status messages here in a second in this white box right here. And if everything goes correctly, we'll get successful or complete. So flash code successful, and download flash completed. So now I can click exit, turn off the radio. I always turn it back on after doing the baseband update, even though I'm going to update the firmware, just to make sure that, everything boots back up correctly first. And now I'm going to go ahead back to my CPS. And on the radio itself, I'm going to press the push to talk button and the PF2 button, which will be the bottom lower button, because you have 3 buttons on the left side of your radio. Whoops. I take that back. PF1, and I put it in icon update mode by mistake. See, I'm human. I'm not a computer. Okay.
Easy there, Jarvis. Gonna start melting down one of them other drives you got there.
Okay, third time's the charm. I've only done this a couple of times since there's only been a few firmware releases on this radio. It's
Agreed,
actually PF1 and PF2 for the firmware update mode. And then you get the red blinky light. That's the light you want to see. All right, so tool, firmware and icon update, open update file. Now remember, all my stuff's in my downloads folder because that's where it downloaded to earlier. That's why it's important to know where you extracted those files. So we're going to look for the folder that has the FW for firmware. We'll have an SPI file right here. We're going to click it, click open, click OK, and then write. Write to radio. Okay. Now, if you did not read your radio earlier and set the COM port earlier, you will get an error message saying check COM link or check radio COM link. Because I read the radio earlier, the CPS knew which COM port it needed to use. For those of you that have already seen the video I uploaded to the training course, you will see where that is actually happened to me because I didn't do that the first time. Because it was a brand new radio, I wasn't reading the radio, and I didn't set the COM port. And I got that same message that I get probably 20 tickets a week for. So it was kind of a mistake and kind of on purpose at the same time. So mistakenly on purpose, I guess. Okay. So the radio goes back to booting. Please wait. And then we get the AnyTone logo again. Now, as somebody brought up on Facebook, some of the radios have the BridgeCom logo on them. That is the only difference between the models of the 168 that we have right now. Some of them, AnyTone put a boot screen that says BridgeCom on them. Some of them, it says AnyTone. There is a way to put a custom boot screen on your radio. So don't panic. You're not stuck with the BridgeCom logo if you don't want it. So I know there's been a few people like, how do I get this off there? I want my name back on there. There's a way to do that. All right. So since the radio has had the firmware updated, now we need to do the MCU reset to reboot the radio, to initialize the firmware. So I'm going to turn the radio back off. I'm going to take and press the PF1 key this time and the push to talk button. Turn it on. It's going to say booting, please wait. And then it'll say, are you sure you want to initialize radio? I'm going to press the black button with the green dash to hit confirm. It's going to say initialize radio. It's going to wait a few seconds, and then it's going to reboot again. And then it's going to ask me to set the date and time. Here's the tip for setting your date and time. Use your PF1 button, the button right under your push to talk, to move through the fields. Use the up and down or your zone buttons to change your numbers up and down. But use PF1 to move side to side through the fields. And when you're done, and only when you're done, press confirm. Otherwise, it'll take whatever you just entered and automatically go in.
Why does my radio show 19 hours difference? Oh, I missed that one. That was always a good one.
Well, that's because you were on the plane flying over another part of the world when you were setting your date and time. No.
All right. Let's see. November 6th, Golf. Victor Golf has got a question. What happens if you don't do the MCU reset?
It won't properly initialize the radio and the firmware, and then you will start getting a bunch of errors eventually in the radio. And then you'll be like, why is this not doing what I want it to do? And it's because it's corrupted the code plug and the firmware because the MCU reset wasn't done.
Not saying it'll happen every time, but it runs a higher chance of that happening without the MCU than it does with the MCU.
And we're not talking about the Marvel comic universe here. Man, if we were, I would have met Ryan Reynolds already as Deadpool.
Well, while Jeremiah's over here getting his radio back up, got two things. One, anybody have any other questions? And number two, 19 minutes remaining before the drawing. 19 minutes.
Yes. And remember, this drawing is exclusively for BC Plus members. So if you're a YouTube subscriber, we will have a different drawing for you guys later at the beginning of the year that'll be open to the YouTube members to be able to win a annual BC Plus membership. So that will allow you to actually get into the BC Plus community. Also, after February 1st, BC University will be on a new platform. So just a heads up on that. Things will be changing. I've got a lot of work ahead of me. So if you see more hair than usual missing off of my head, that will probably explain where it went. If, you know, I start looking like Red from That 70s Show.
I just help out with the shows, Greg.
All right. So radio is booted back up, and then I'm actually back to the default screen now because the code plug's not on it and the default timeout. So without putting the digital contact list back onto the radio, yeah, it's the default timeout for the menu screen. Without doing the digital contact list, because we don't want to be here all night waiting for it to load, I'm going to click write to radio and just tell it to write. And you'll see it says PC write on the screen. Now, something that you'll notice on your radio, when you are writing the digital contact list, it'll say PC read and then say PC write. So just a heads up on that. All right. And then I am back on my channels there. As you can tell, I only have one of the VFOs active. I don't normally have two active unless I'm on the 878 and I'm doing APRS. So I can have one on APRS receive and the other one on my DMR. So that is how you update your firmware, your baseband, and install the new CPS on the 168. So I wanted to make sure that I showed that part for everybody on YouTube. So for everybody on YouTube, thank you for being here tonight. We're going to switch over to the BC Plus member only portion of the show now. If you do want to find out how to become a member of BC Plus, all you've got to do is go to bridgecomsystems.com and click highlight the part that says BridgeCom University. Just mouse over that and you'll get a drop down. And at the very bottom of it, or excuse me, in the middle, it'll say BridgeCom Plus. And let me share my screen here so I can show you that. Right here, BridgeCom University. And any radio that you get from us has BridgeCom University included for that radio. If you want to get all the courses, I recommend doing BC Plus because you can get all the courses for all the radios. And you just mouse over BridgeCom University right here. It pops up this list, and then you can click BridgeCom Plus. And then it's got the different options, the monthly membership, the annual membership, or the lifetime membership. So, also after the first of the year, I've got to confirm this, but for the annual and the lifetime members, you should be getting the new Duo Max code plug for your radios. So I will probably do a group email with the appropriate link to download that once I get the final confirmation on that. So let me go ahead and stop my share here. And again, everybody on YouTube, thank you for watching tonight. If you've got any suggestions for shows you would like to see, make sure that you contact us and let us know. And we will see what we can do to get those topics picked up and put into a show format. So again, for BC Plus Live, I'm your host, Jeremiah, with my co-host,
Jeremy.
All right, 73.